Today I am asking the question, do you track macros or calories, and which is better? So stay tuned and find out.
In our appearance-driven social system, toxic productivity and diet culture are considered especially heinous. In Denver, Colorado, a dedicated goal-getter seeking to crush these vicious lies is the founder of an elite squad known as Heal Thy Spirit. These are her stories. Hello, real quick. This is a disclaimer that as I was editing the video, I realized that I stated the macros wrong for whatever reason. When I was in the car that day, I had 3 grams for protein and carbs, which is completely wrong. I said it correctly the first time, but as the video goes on, so there's inserts. So just so you know, if you're listening and not watching, just be mindful that every time I said 3 grams, I meant to say 4 grams. So I'm not an idiot. I just, had a brain fart. So enjoy.
One thing that I've noticed that's come up quite a bit is, the topic of tracking calories and should you track, and all of that. So anybody, if you've not been here before, my name is Tia, and this is Heal Thy Spirit Podcast, or Healthy Spirit Podcast, however you would like to say it, but it's kind of a play on words. With regard to macros and tracking, so I have been tracking my calories for years and years, off and on for years, not consistently. I downloaded MyFitnessPal back in 2011, prior to having lap band surgery. One of the other baseball moms that was, at the field one day when we were at practice, told me about it. I downloaded it and I started tracking. Not long after that, coincidentally, in April of 2011, I did start the process of having the lap band surgery. And if you aren't familiar with what that is or what my experience is, you can certainly go watch a video. I have a whole video that I talked about that on. But essentially what ultimately happened, I would track for a while and then I would, quit tracking, or, whatever the situation is. But as of today, and I am recording this video on April 24th, 2025, I have over 800 days of consistent tracking. So what that means is, regardless of whether I stick to my count or not, whether that be calories or protein or fiber or carbs or sugar or what's the other one? Fat. Of course, I forgot fat because that's like the best one. I still put it in, regardless of whether I stay to that established goal. The reason being is because I like the information, the data. We all know that all calories are not created equal. In fact, with regards to the macros, that was really what I wanted to talk about today. If tracking is tough for you, if you track your macros, it's a little less triggering for some people. For me, it's not triggering at all, because I just like information, and I feel like the more information that I have, the better decisions that I can make going forward. So essentially, macros are broken down, and you may already know this, but for those of you who don't, and when I'm talking about these numbers, I mean actual real food. So I'm not talking about like protein bars or protein shakes or the Clear Whey or any of those processed foods that, often have a higher count of per gram of protein, or lower calories per gram of whichever macro you're tracking, because it's processed to make sure that you get just whatever that nutrient is. But if you're eating whole foods, meat, potatoes, salads, those types of things, then of those foods, there are 4 calories per gram in protein and in carbs. And then fat has 9 calories per gram of fat. I'm not sure, I'll double check it, but I do believe fiber is 3 calories per gram of fiber. So that's, and again, not talking about like if you take the gummy vitamins for fiber supplement, the calorie content, I'm not sure if that's exactly right, but because there's other things added into that. But if you're eating natural whole food, then you can use that as your gauge. So when you are determining, a lot of people have been talking about using the TDEE calculator. It's TDEE.net in order to determine how many calories they should be consuming to either maintain, gain, or lose weight based on your sex, height, and body fat percentage. With that, oftentimes if you scroll down a little bit lower, once you put in all your stats, and it gives you your maintenance, and then you can click on the tab that says either maintaining, which is what it defaults to, bulking if you're trying to, get bigger or gain weight, or cutting, which is when you're trying to lose weight. And most of the people watching this channel are probably in that phase. When you are looking at that, it, essentially we all give grief to the people that say just eat less and move more, calories in, calories out. But that is not necessarily inaccurate. I mean, a calorie is 3,500 calories is a pound. That's just science. You need to be burning more calories or energy. My friend Misty recently did a video last week, your pal Misty, if you watch YouTube, and she kind of broke this down as well. But calories are energy. So if you think of it that way, you have to be burning more energy than you are consuming in order to lose weight. That's just a fact. So anyone who says, oh, you're taking the easy way out, or, regardless, the exercise, and when I say the easy way out, I don't think I mentioned it in the beginning, but if it's your first time here, I have been on Tirzepatide, the name brand, which I won't say, even though I don't have that many subscribers. I still won't say the name, but the one that starts with the Z. I've been taking for, this is my 53rd week, so I'm just over a year, and that update video is going to be up in a couple of days if you have not seen it yet. But it's not the easy way out, because it's a bunch of different things. That's why not everyone needs to be on a GLP-1 or GIP. Not everyone is able to lose weight with diet and exercise. Some people are. That's, true. Some people require, some additional hormonal assistance, which I find that, I'm one of those people. I don't want to get too far off on a tangent. But that being said, I did do a lot of the things, and I mentioned the 800 plus days of tracking my calories. If you divide that by 365, that's more than 2 years. I've only been on the GLP-1 GIP for just over a year. So, and I was not losing weight or fat or whatever, regardless of my eating habits and my exercise habits, which are also exceed the 1 year that I've been on this medication. So all of that being said, different strokes for different folks, essentially, is how it works. It is true that some people can just eat less and move more, and that will do the trick. Someone like me, who has been struggling with obesity and morbid obesity prior to the surgery, even with the weight loss surgery, I did lose some weight, but I am currently, as of today, I weigh the least that I have weighed in my entire adult life. I'm about 10 pounds shy of my high school weight. And at that time, I always wanted to lose 10 or 15 pounds. But it's funny because if I look back at pictures, I am definitely more fit at my heavier body than I was in my 175 pound body 20 plus years ago. And, you know, that is because of body composition, which is, again, another topic for another day. But all that to say that, you know, there are different things and a different combination of things that add up to success when you're on a fat loss journey. And that is, you know, the focus today is on macros. So back to the TDEE calculator, it will give you a calorie count. And then when you scroll down, you can select whether you are interested in a high protein diet, a low carb diet. I forget what exactly the different options are, but essentially what it does is it will break down how many grams of each macro, protein, carbs, and fat, that you should be consuming to hit that calorie deficit goal that it's suggesting. It also allows you to account for exercise and all of that. When I do my calculations, I do not put in exercise, even though I work out at least 5 to 6 days a week with 3 days of strength training minimum. And that has been consistent for, gosh, I can't even tell you. I mean, there are weeks that I don't exercise if I'm traveling or my schedule's offbeat. But there are weeks that I don't do 6 days, or, you know, I may take several days in a row off. I just kind of listen to my body. And if I need some recovery, then I take some recovery, but I get right back on it. So with regard to your total calorie count, an easy way for you to determine, you know, if you know that your particular goal is X number of calories, that, and you know, you have the knowledge that both protein and carbs have 3 calories per gram, then you can establish, you may see a dietitian or a nutritionist who has recommended certain macros in lieu of you counting calories. Sunshine Storyline has a website or has a YouTube channel, and she talks about how she does 30-30-30, which is basically the only thing she tracks is her protein, and she just fills in everything else. She wants to make sure she gets 90 grams of protein per day, which means each of the 3 meals that she eats per day has to have 30 calories or 30 grams of protein. Well, if you do the math I just did, 30 times 3 is 90 calories. 90 calories per meal are attributed to protein. So that's 180 calories per day of protein. And then she fills in her other foods with the rest of the calories. So that's one example. I'm just, you know, using that because it was something that I did here recently. In my opinion, it is important to keep track of the other particular calorie content. And Traces of Twan recently talked about how she was adjusting her calorie count in the MyFitnessPal app, and it requires that you do it by percentages. So that's kind of what prompted this video, because you know, on the cuff, she was struggling just a little bit with trying to figure out how to make the percentages add up evenly to what she was trying to do. So if I just use myself for an example, and I've actually increased my calorie intake, again, another video for another day, but I am shooting for about 1,500 calories per day on average. So that means some days I will have less and some days I will have more, but at the end of the week, when I divide it out by 7 days, all the calories I had for that week, it's going to come to an average of about 1,500 per day. So that is where I'm at right now. If I were to use the calculations that I pretty much almost the entire year that I've been taking tirzepatide, name brand with a Z, That calorie expectation from my dietitian was 1410, I believe is what it worked out to be, or between 1400 and 1410. And that was 120 grams of protein. So if you take 120 and multiply that by 3, that gives you 360 calories per day coming from protein of that 1400. If she had me shoot for 100 grams of carbs, which was, if you take 100 grams of carbs, multiply that by 3 calories, that's 300 calories per day attributed to carbs. Fat, she wanted me at 55 grams. So I am not the best at math, despite being in school for accounting and being a licensed loan officer as a profession for more than 20 years. So quick math. I know that 9 times 5 is 45. So that's 450. And then another 5 is 495. So I should be 495 calories a day. And I'll correct whatever I misspoke on here. 495 calories a day attributed to fat. So if you add all of those up, my 360 calories of protein, my 300 calories of carbs, we're at 660, plus 495 calories of fat, then that brings you to whatever it is, 1,000 and some change. And then that leaves like 200 or 300 calories to go towards fiber and just whatever. So, and some things do cross over. So that's why it's not an exact science as far as the, if you track religiously and put everything down. And another good point that my friend Misty brought up in her video, which is something that I knew, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. It's if you're reading the nutrition labels, the FDA does not require the nutrition labels to be exactly accurate. They can be off by 20%. Meaning that if something says it has 100 calories, it might have 100 calories, or it might have 80 calories, or it might have 120 calories. So there is no exact science to it. I just that's why I also don't count or reduce my exercise calories. If I burn, 300 calories doing a workout, I'm not gonna eat 300 more calories in the day. That space of discrepancy with the labels, because I do measure everything, I weigh everything, I measure everything. Even though I can eyeball it, I'm just one of those weird people that is a little OCD about figures and being right and being exact. I like the particulars matter, the details matter, in my opinion. And that's no shade to anybody who is not a stickler for detail. So all of that said, when you are trying to figure out your percentages in whatever tracker you're using for food, once you know which macros you're headed towards, you can pop in, so if I took, 120 grams of protein, and I know that there's 3 calories per gram, then my protein calories for the day is 120 plus or times 3, which gives you 360. If you take that 360 and you divide it by your total daily count, so in my case it would be 1410, that's going to give you a decimal percentage of what percentage of your calories are going towards the day's calorie allotment. So why is that helpful? Well, one, to update the tracker, if you have a tracker like MyFitnessPal where you can put in the percentages, but it also helps you monitor balanced eating. So you are more full when you have a good combination of, protein, fat, and fiber. That's what's going to keep you satiated. When you have just the right amount of each. Per meal is the best way to look at it, but per day, for sure, it's going to help you stay more satisfied and be less likely to overeat. And when you're, so that if you're going to, McDonald's and getting a quarter pounder with cheese, it's going to have however much protein in the burger and mostly fat. There's not going to be a lot of fiber. So you're going to want to balance out your other meals with, the missing nutrients. And so that is how tracking your macros is important, because 100%, I could eat 14 or 1500 calories of fast food every day and still not lose weight. Why? Because of the composition. If you're eating more carbs, you may hold on to more water, so it's going to take longer. Or you may talk the side effect experiences that people talk about with their hair falling out, or the Ozempic face, or all of these things that, I'll be honest, I have not. We had I was on Downsizing Divas live last night, and she did a great Mythbuster episode. And it was kind of a game, an interactive game where everyone in the chat could play along, and she kind of debunked some myths about taking GLP-1 medications. But it's not specific to GLP-1 medications or weight loss surgery. When I first had my lap band surgery, there was a very concerted effort. Now, the type of surgery I had was not, again, lap band is not the same as like a what is it called? Gastro bypass. I feel like that's not the right word, but whatever that is, or the sleeve, I didn't have any cutting and moving around of parts. So my digestion, I could still digest everything. But sometimes when you have those more invasive surgeries, and again, no judgment, just stating facts, it prevents you from being able to digest your food the way, you naturally could. And you hear about, different things like dumping, where, the food, because it's kind of skipping over it's not going through the normal process. If you eat certain foods, I know someone who had the surgery years and years ago, and if she eats a lot of sugar, she goes straight to the bathroom because her body can't process the sugar anymore. It runs straight through her. And having to take additional bariatric vitamins and things of that nature, because you aren't able to get the nutrients from the food sometimes when you've had one of those surgeries. In that case, I forgot my train of thought and where I was. I'll have to watch back and maybe do a voiceover. But if you are, calories. So if you're eating a bunch of calories, but you're not getting the nutrients, then you are going to have those side effects like hair loss and, extra fat loss and, loose skin and things like that. You may have those regardless, even if you are getting all the nutrients that you need, especially if you're losing the weight rapidly, which I did not. I averaged about a pound a week, and I'm totally cool with that. All that to say is that macros matter. So do you have to track your food? No, absolutely not. Do you have to track your macros? No, absolutely not. But I hope this information that I provided with you today will give you a guide to be able to better determine if tracking, if you're stuck, if you're in a stall, or if you aren't losing, or if you're experiencing some of those side effects. Try to track your macros for a week and pay attention to the particular amounts of types of food that you're eating, and hitting that, that baseline steadily for a week to see if that gives you some improvement, either in your fat loss, or in the reduction of your hair loss, or in the lessening of the loose skin. So that is all that I have for you today on this whole, should you count your calories and should you count your macros? I'm a fan, but I'm not a doctor, I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a nutritionist. I have 0 certifications except my experience with trying to lose weight over the last, I don't know, 35 years of my life. I'm 46. So, there's that. I hope it helps. And remember to heal thy spirit for a healthy spirit. And if you watch this, go ahead and leave any sort of notebook, like for tracking. Leave a notebook in the comments below, and also any questions that you have as well. So again, don't forget to heal thy spirit for a healthy spirit. I'll see you next time. May joy and peace be yours in abundance. Take care.